Hello chaps! Today, to kick off this Halloween season, we will be rating the scares of a little film I'm sure you've never heard of before, Paranormal Activity, which actually brings back some fond memories to me as I first watched it in a practically empty theatre in Japan. This flick was made on a shoestring budget by the then unheard of Israeli director Oren Peli, who wrote, directed, produced and filmed it himself. He would then later go on to produce a whole bunch of other films, most notably the Insidious series and The Bay, which we may have to circle back to down the line. Paranormal Activity, after, shall we say, a complicated distribution process and an amazing test screening that allegedly scared people so badly they left the cinema, languished in production hell for a few years and was eventually released in 2009, making absolute crapzillions of money and energizing the ailing found footage genre for quite a while. It went on to spawn 6 bloody sequels, prequels and in-between quills, 1 non-canon quasi-sequel in Japan, and a ridiculously complicated continuity that honestly rivals stuff like Saw or old slasher franchises. Despite it being surprisingly well reviewed for a found footage film and beloved by a great many people, my own opinions on it are mixed, which I'll go into later. But is it scary? Well, let's roll the film and take a look together. Our story opens with us meeting our 2 main characters, day trader Mika and aspiring teacher Katie, both interestingly enough playing themselves. They've just moved in together, and yep, as you guessed it, these are the 2 characters we'll be spending the movie with. This duo is honestly both the best and the worst thing about the movie, as you'll come to see as we go. Katie is pretty whiny and naggy.
So seriously, what did you throw down for that?
Mika's a smug jackass, and they both make truly ridiculously bad decisions. I mean, what are we watching here? Some kind of horror movie? We see Mika playing around with and installing a bunch of cameras and fancy electronic doodads around the house because, get this, it turns out that Katie thinks she's been haunted by something evil ever since childhood, and she's just informed Mika of this kind of important fact, which I suppose does get the film moving along, but it does feel like we kind of skipped an act here. We spend some time with the pair and learn a little bit about their relationship at present. Katie's kind of apprehensive and scared, while Mika thinks the entire thing is a huge joke. I know I'm just going to love you. We also learn that Katie's childhood home burned down, which, as she doesn't know what little firebug this demon is yet, she is unsure if the 2 are connected. Anyway, we get our first kind of fake-out warm-up scare when a weird noise is heard.
Let's investigate.
But after investigation, it turns out to just be the ice maker. Mika then sets up the infamous bedroom cam, which will be our source of most of the best scares in the movie. Mika also suggests exactly what would be my first thought.
We could get
as soon as it's gotta get old, right?
We could get
Be careful, you're about to run into the shower.
extracurricular with this, and I've mentioned it before.
But Katie isn't into it. Now, I do want to actually commend this movie for one thing. The dialogue and the way it's filmed is actually really authentic. Katie and Mika talk over each other and cut each other off, much like real people do, which does help to sell the found footage premise. It's honestly something that I wish more found footage films could get right. Soon, it's bedtime for our couple, and we get our first glimpse of something you'd better get used to, that iconic blue-tinted low-light filter. And once our semi-happy couple are in dreamland, we get a time-lapse and the faint sound of something metallic falling to the ground. It turns out that our demonic presence just put Katie's keys on the floor. Okay then, as Mika puts it.
Well, obviously this is incontrovertible evidence that evil forces came from beyond the grave to move your keys.
Make your breakfast.
Yeah, what's with that? We then meet Dr. Fredericks, a psychic who came over at Katie's request, who, after Katie explains the situation in that whatever is haunting her scratches on the walls and whispers her name, basically tells them that, yep, you've got a demon problem and you're screwed. If they leave, it'll just follow Katie, and if they do anything to communicate with it or try and get rid of it, it's just gonna get pissed off. Mika continues acting like a jackass, by the way, especially when, later, Katie wants to call a demonologist to consult and Mika tells her to basically calm down her crazy head. He just wants to keep videotaping things. Fast forward to our next night scene and Mika is really pushing the whole sex tape thing, including telling Katie that the video camera is off. You absolute dick. We then cut to another time-lapse, and we get our first sort of scare of the movie as something gradually closes and opens the door next to the sleeping pair. And I'll have to say, that's actually genuinely creepy. This idea that while you're sound asleep, something is wandering around your house messing with your stuff. Try not to think of that before you sleep tonight. The next morning, Mika shows Katie the footage, which freaks her out a bit, but Mika naturally cannot resist becoming even more of an ass bucket.
Wow.
You think you can get that ghost back?
Think I can do what?
Get the ghost back. Go some more interesting,
I'm not interested in that. I just want them to go away.
Seriously, mate, wind it in a bit. Shortly after this, Katie shrieks and, camera in hand, Mika goes to investigate, but it's only a toilet spider.
Get rid of it, please.
You scream like that for a spider?
Yeah, don't worry, mate. Mrs. Owl is the exact same. We end up back in bed where Mika is doing some hardcore research via a paperback book on demons. What? Well, D for effort, I guess. Katie is starting to get slightly annoyed, but Mika makes a pretty valid point in that Katie neglected to tell him about the whole demon haunting thing for their entire frigging relationship. Yeah, ladies, it's full disclosure when it comes to crazy exes or demon hauntings. That night, we now get a familiar whom sound. And Katie wakes up from a nightmare, a cheap jump scare, which is actually a fake out, as we suddenly hear something happen downstairs.
She's here.
I'm going down.
No, Mika, no.
Mika goes to investigate, but doesn't find anything, and decides to taunt the demon yet again. Dude, we all know what happens to smartasses. The next morning, they review the footage together with one of Katie's girlfriends, and Mika discovers a weird whispering sound. He decides that the demon wants to communicate and suggests buying a Ouija board, ignoring Doctor's orders yet again. Katie makes him promise not to, he agrees, but once again, starts taunting the damn demon. Sure enough, we end up back in bed, and the couple wake up listening intently, along with the audience when... Yup, that's the first real scare of the movie, and boy, it's a doozy. I'll admit that this one got me and earns itself a solid 7. This is also the point in the movie where I'd be like, yep, demon, you can have the keys, we're moving into a church, thank you. They wander the house a bit, and aside from an oddly mobile light fixture, there isn't much else to see. we do get some creepy footsteps, and Mika cements himself as a large diameter bunghole.
This is really good stuff, Kate. I'm telling you, this is the. I hope that guy, whatever, shows us a little more action.
Seriously, get bent, dude. Katie is also getting understandably annoyed with all the cameras, but Mika shoots her down, saying that it's too late to turn back now. Idiot. Mika again tries to communicate with Mr. Demon, who it turns out responds when he mentions the Ouija board. Guess what dumbass Mika is about to do? Our next bedtime footage is night 15. We see Katie get up and stand there looking at Mika for like 2 hours before wandering off. He finds her out on the porch, acting very odd and not wanting to go indoors yet. Mika hears a bang.
Fuck is that?
And finds the TV set to static. This entire sequence is actually quite unsettling if a little slow, and earns a 5. Just don't push it. Katie finally makes her way indoors, but she's clearly disoriented. The next day, she freaks the hell out while seeing the footage. Clearly, she doesn't remember Jack. We then see, are you kidding me? Mika? Katie is about as annoyed as I am.
You did exactly what I meant.
I borrowed a
How
Ouija board.
dare you?
But when Mika leaves the room, we get some footsteps, a weird breeze, and the Ouija plinth starts moving before the entire thing catches on fire. This is kind of lame, and definitely feels a lot sillier than the rest of the scares in this movie. Also, guys, let me tell you right now, the second you see this tape, this is where you get the hell out, consequences be damned. Or, how about this? Contact your local news so we can finally get a sequel to Ghostwatch. When Mika gets back, it turns out the demon left something on the board for him, but Katie's still as mad as a bag of cats, and it takes a lot of bickering and convincing before Mika is finally let out of the doghouse when he swears on camera not to annoy the demon further. I wonder how long that will last. After yet some more bickering, Mika decides to try to decode the message on the Ouija board before Katie tells him off.
I don't really care what it means. You're done playing with it. I want it out of the house.
We then have no more incidents, and without Mika taunting it, the demon dies down and the movie ends. Wait, what? Mika talked Katie into letting him place powder down like a damn Santa trap to try and find some demon footprints, which she agrees to if he swears that this time is the last one. Fortunately, she does convince Mika to let her call the demonologist on the morrow, and that night, sure enough, something comes a-creepin'. This bit gets even creepier when they realize that the prints come into the room, but don't go back out. Hoo-hoo-hoo, those footprints are definitely not human. The two explore the house, following the tracks I'm assuming in reverse, and spot the entrance to the attic slightly open. Mika climbs up despite Katie's protests and finds a slightly burned photo of Katie up there. Wah? Which causes her to freak out some more. I initially thought this was from the house that burned down, but after watching the sequel, it's explained a bit more there. Well, the prequel. Forgive me, the series continuity is freaking batty. Katie continues to be understandably disturbed by the fact that something that really shouldn't even exist has turned up right in their attic. Yeah, that's kind of spooky. She declares that it's time to call in the demonologist, which does make sense. I mean, if I see squadrons of angry spiders, I'm calling an exterminator, and if there's a weird pyromaniac demon living in my attic, I am calling a demonologist. Mika, however, true to form, is an asshat about the entire thing, resulting in yay, more bickering.
Making progress.
No, you haven't been having any progress.
This movie should be called Paranormal Bickering. She does end up calling the demonologist Dr. Avery's, but it's all completely moot because it turns out...
Well, I called Dr. Avery's and he's gone.
She She calls up Fredericks again though, who, despite Mika's protests, agrees to come in, and with our bickering toll paid up, we get to enjoy another pretty spooky scene. Although this one's a bit silly. You'll see what I mean.
Something out there. God damn it!
Jeez, Mika, you kiss Katie with that mouth. On one hand, I love the footsteps and the door closing. I'd hope the demon would just be holding it closed, but no, it bangs on the other side for some reason. You know, I would love a version of this movie from the demon's POV, because I would love to know why it does what it does. This scene earns a 4, enough banging already. But no, we get a lot more bangs, and of course Mika wandering around, continuing to cuss out the demon, and Katie continuing to wig out and refusing to go back to bed. We get more ambiguous creaking and thudding, which I'm not even going to count as a scare anymore, and somehow Mika convinces Katie to finally go back to bed. The next morning, we get a terrified and sleep-deprived Katie, and Mika finally acts like a decent bloody human being and cuddles her until she falls asleep. Ah, dude, you're almost redeemed. Almost. As we're heading for the endgame, things start to escalate rapidly from here on out, as Mr. Demon decides that he's no longer screwing around. Hey, there's a photograph of them with a big crack and Mika's face damaged. Defaced? Face to face? That sounds weird. Interestingly, this does seem to be foreshadowing for a planned but unfilmed ending, which we'll get to in a little bit. We then get another scare.
This is bullshit.
It's here.
What's here? What? What are you talking about?
I don't know. I feel it. I feel it breathing on me.
Meh, that's way less scary in the daylight. Dr. Fredericks arrives and promptly nopes out, telling the young couple that they're on their own. Get another time lapse of them sleeping, and you just know something has to happen here. Hopefully something big. What you got for us, demon? That's so weak that I am not even going to bother rating it. On reviewing the footage, we see that something was playing with the duvet and also bent the door weirdly. Is that just the camera angle? I don't know. We also finally get a payoff to that dumb Ouija stuff when Mika discovers a website about a girl called Diane, which is one of the possible names constructed from the letters we saw earlier. It turns out that Diane had very similar experiences to Katie a good while back and called an exorcist herself, which didn't go very well. We do get a very creepy visual of a deformed face with black eyes and mouth, but it's so brief and so out of focus that I'm not going to bother including it. That said, it does look oddly similar to the infamous stretchy-faced lady from Grave Encounters, and this is, oddly enough, not the only tenuous connection between the two franchises. Of course, we get some more bickering, and Katie finally tells Mika what we've all wanted to say to him since this film started.
Would you stop following me with the camera?
The two keep arguing, and Mika reaches an entirely new level of being a dick.
Thank you, Mika. Thank you so much.
Oh, hang out with your friend upstairs. I'll be down here.
Katie, Seriously, you dated this ass clown for 3 years. And to make matters more frustrating, Katie is then seen sobbing and apologizing to Mika. Fortunately, this does lead into the best and most iconic scene of the entire movie that night. Just watch. Holy crap, that is terrifying. An easy 7. And we get to hear Katie screaming for help as the demon drags her around. Finally, Mika is able to recover her and return her to the bedroom. Although, frankly, Katie, at this point, you're better off with the demon. She finally says, honestly, the first sensible thing in the film thus far.
I don't care. I just want to go. I just want to go. I can't be here. I can't. Just let's go. Please, let's go. Let's just go right now. Let's just get in the car.
And, believe it or not, Mika agrees, but also shows the audience that this demon is a little bit bitey. Which, yes, is another connection to Grave Encounters, although this may just be a situation where the later film ripped this off. Paid homage to, I don't know, horror is so damn incestuous. Of course, this being a found footage movie, their plans to finally get out come too little too late, as we find Katie unresponsive, definitely possessed, and squeezing a crucifix so hard that she cut her hand. Mika then burns what I assume is the photo of Katie and declares that nope, he's done. We see Katie in bed later, who's now mysteriously changed her mind and doesn't want to go, and then we get the final nail in the coffin when, well, this happens.
I think we'll be okay now.
Yep, mate, she's possessed and you're screwed. This all brings us to the last night and the movie's climax. Katie wakes up, obviously possessed, and stands in place, staring at Mika as his blankets are gradually pulled off by the demon. She then moves to his side of the bed and stares at him for almost 2 hours before she walks off and suddenly starts screaming, causing him to leap out of bed. We hear some more screaming and then, yeah, bye-bye Mika. You will not be missed. As Katie crawls towards the camera, found footage aficionados are just waiting for the king of the genre tropes. Get ready for it. Yay! It's the creepy face stinger reveal. This one kind of sucks, especially considering how awful Diane's face looked in that old footage. And that's where the film ends, aside from a text epilogue telling us that Mika's body was found by the cops, assumably leaving the now possessed Katie in the wind. Interestingly enough, there are 2 alternative endings, one showing Katie getting shot by the cops and the other, the notorious unfilmed ending, which involves Katie beating Mika to death with the camera in a sort of first-person found footage shot. It's a great idea, and it's a shame that it never got filmed, but it's also the final kill in Grave Encounters 2. Tribute? Ripoff? Unintentional coincidence? I'll let you decide. Regardless, that's Paranormal Activity, folks. So, when taken as a whole, Paranormal Activity is... well, it's okay. Sorry to be wishy-washy. The acting is pretty natural and the premise is sheer dynamite, but our main characters are just too dumb to live, and spending an entire movie listening to their constant bickering, in particular Mika's endless driving need to be the biggest asshole in the entire universe, gets old fast. Is it scary though? Well, it depends. I would say yeah, with a big asterisk. At At the time, this was quite possibly people's first encounters with the found footage genre that wasn't Blair Witch, meaning they would not be familiar with the tropes, especially that scary face stinger scene. It also successfully attacks a very fundamental fear we have as people. Our homes are our castles. It's where we are and should feel safe. It's one thing to be stuck in the woods, and it's quite another thing to have something attacking you in this castle, in this place where you should feel safe. It also has one or two fairly effective scares, although it does tend to gild the lily with pointless noises and bangs and faffing around, and the demon does way too much silly shit for me to take it seriously. All in all, I'd have to say that it's an okay flick. I mean, it's not Ghostwatch or the Borderlands by any means, but I had some good spooky fun with it, and it ranks a solid, if slightly subdued 6 on the scarometer. Mental note, get Mrs. Owl to make me an actual scarometer visual. Anyways folks, cheers, thanks for watching and take care. Next time, we'll look at the next Paranormal Activity, which I haven't seen in donkey's years. Should be fun. See you there.